Welcome to our deep dive. We're looking today at, well, an area that's always strategically significant and often in the headlines, the really complex relationship between China and Taiwan.
It's constantly evolving, isn't it?
Exactly. And today we're trying to get beyond just the surface noise. We're digging into the very latest developments, using insights straight from the Stylo News Strategic Watch List, China-Taiwan Strategic Assessment.
And this covers just the last, 36 hours?
That's right, so it's incredibly current. Our mission really is to unpack this assessment for you, pull out the key nuggets, and help you understand the dynamics, the different viewpoints, and, well, what's really at stake.
It's a lot to cover.
It is. We'll touch on the political rhetoric, some interesting internal challenges in Taiwan, the role of international players like the U.S., and this critical issue of energy security.
Which keeps coming up. And what's fascinating, I think, and the report highlights this, is just how quickly things can change.
Sure.
One event can shift the entire strategic landscape.
Absolutely. It's a dynamic environment. Every statement, every move, it all ripples outwards.
Definitely have global resonance.
Okay, let's dive right in then. The executive summary from our source. It paints a picture of significantly heightened tensions over these last 36 hours. Can you set the scene? What are the key things we need to grasp immediately?
Sure. The report flags, right at the top, this period marked by much higher political rhetoric around the China-Taiwan issue.
Okay.
And this isn't just sort of general noise. We're talking specific, quite pointed language from all the main players involved.
Right.
Then looking internally within Taiwan, there have been some pretty notable political events. You had these failed recall efforts targeting the ruling party, the DPP, the Democratic Progressive Party.
I saw headlines about that.
And alongside that, a proposed nuclear energy referendum also failed to pass.
Interesting combination. So how did Beijing react?
Well, Beijing's reaction was incredibly swift and very clear. They condemned these internal Taiwanese political moves, calling them separatists.
Separatists!
For internal recall votes. Yes. They immediately connected Taiwan's domestic politics to their fundamental claim of sovereignty over the island. It shows their sensitivity.
That's quite a statement. Why would they frame internal democratic processes that way? Does the report offer insight there?
It really speaks volumes about how Beijing views any action within Taiwan that they perceive as potentially challenging the one China principle. It doesn't matter if it's an election, a referendum.
I see.
For them, these aren't just local political issues. They see them as tests of your core claim. Meanwhile, you have the United States sticking to its consistent position.
Which is?
Reiterating support for Taiwan's democratic institutions and, importantly, for its defense capabilities.
Okay, so the U.S. line holds steady.
Pretty much. And if you look wider at public sentiment, especially across East Asian social media, the report notes you see a lot of anxiety, polarization. People are paying close attention to the risk of escalation, what it all means for regional stability.
It really does underline the complexity, doesn't it? So to really understand the gravity here, we need to look through the eyes of the decision makers. What's the report saying about Beijing's view, President Xi's perspective?
Right. China's perspective, as laid out in the report, is absolutely unequivocal. It starts right at the top with President Xi Jinping.
Okay.
He consistently asserts the one China principle and makes it clear he opposes any form of Taiwan independence. That's the foundation.
The baseline.
Exactly. And the Chinese Foreign Ministry then echoes this. They specifically called Taiwan's recent recall attempts political manipulation. And they reiterated China's very firm opposition to any separatist activities aimed at Taiwan independence.
So the language is strong. What are the underlying motives here, according to the assessment?
It seems multi-layered. 1, deterring any separatist feeling from taking root or growing in Taiwan. 2, maintaining their regional influence. And 3, signaling their unwavering resolve both to people at home and internationally.
So it's projecting strength and consistency.
Absolutely. The tone remains uncompromising. Official statements always hammer home sovereignty and territorial integrity. There's zero ambiguity from their side.
Crystal clear from Beijing, then. But what about Taiwan? They're under this huge external pressure, but the report also mentions significant domestic political challenges. How are their leaders navigating all this?
That's the other crucial side. Taiwan's leaders, President Lai Ching-te and Premier William Lai, they've openly acknowledged a need for, quote, policy reflection.
Reflection. Specifically?
After those recent DPP setbacks, the failed recall votes, the failed nuclear referendum we mentioned.
Okay.
President Lai actually said, and this is a direct quote, We must listen to the people's voices and adjust our policies accordingly.
That sounds quite pragmatic.
It does. It signals they recognize the shifting domestic mood and the need to, well, adjust course, perhaps. The DPP leadership is now facing real pressure to reconcile its traditional anti-nuclear stance with growing demands, public and industrial, for better energy security.
The energy angle again. It's a tough balancing act.
It's a critical internal tension, and it definitely has strategic implications. And then you have the opposition, the KMT, the Kuomintang.
What's their take?
Well, their leadership has framed the failed recalls quite strategically as a victory for democratic norms and legislative independence.
Positioning themselves as a check on power.
Precisely. It reinforces their role and just highlights how contested Taiwan's internal politics really are right now. It's not a monolithic bloc, which creates its own vulnerability.
Sounds like they're juggling quite a bit, internally and externally. And of course, the U.S. looms large in this picture, often seen as a key supporter, a balancer. What's the U.S. take on these recent shifts? And does the report suggest any specific advice they're giving Taiwan?
Yeah, the U.S. role is critical. The administration, State Department security officials, they've consistently voiced continued support for Taiwan's democratic processes and defense capabilities.
So reaffirming the existing stance.
Exactly. But what's maybe more interesting or telling is that U.S. officials have also apparently advised Taiwan to consider nuclear restarts for greater energy independence.
Really? Nuclear restarts? That's quite specific advice.
It is, and it's not just about climate or energy policy in isolation. It clearly reflects Washington's interest in seeing a stable, resilient Taiwan, particularly given the cross-Strait tensions.
So it ties into their broader strategic goals.
Definitely. From the U.S. viewpoint, the interests are clear: deter Chinese coercion, support democratic governance, and ultimately ensure regional stability. They're looking at the long game.
And energy security is a big piece of that resilience puzzle for Taiwan.
A huge piece.
Okay, so we have these viewpoints: Beijing, Taipei, Washington. Let's connect the dots now. What does this all mean for you, the listener? How do these perspectives and events fit into the larger strategic picture based on the report's analysis?
Well, if we try to pull it all together, these recent developments really underscore two, I think, critical and intertwined points. First, the fragility, perhaps, of Taiwan's domestic political scene.
The internal divisions we talked about.
Exactly. And second, the constant, unrelenting external pressure it faces from Beijing.
Okay.
The failure of those DPP-led recalls and the nuclear referendum outcome, they're quite revealing. They don't just show disagreement, they point to a more balanced and contested political environment inside Taiwan.
And why is that strategically important?
Because it could genuinely limit the DPP's ability to push through its legislative agenda. It might complicate policy implementation, especially on things like national defense or economic resilience efforts.
Makes sense. And Beijing's reaction.
Their swift condemnation. It wasn't just words. It acts as a clear warning against further moves toward independence. It reinforces that underlying risk of escalation if things deteriorate across the strait. It's like a constant low-level pressure.
Right. A tightening of the screws, as you said.
Yes. But here's where the report gets particularly insightful, I think. The whole debate around nuclear energy really throws a spotlight on Taiwan's acute energy vulnerability.
That keeps coming up as a key factor.
It's a major strategic weakness. It's something that could theoretically be exploited by external actors in a crisis.
You mean if their energy supply was disrupted?
Precisely. Imagine the pressure during a critical standoff. If the power grid is vulnerable, it's a real Achilles heel.
Okay.
And while U.S. support is still seen as a critical deterrent, the fact that Washington is actively encouraging energy diversification, including possibly nuclear restarts, that signals concern over Taiwan's resilience.
They're telling them to shore up that vulnerability.
Essentially, yes. You need to strengthen your foundations, and energy is key. And finally, those social media trends showing anxiety and polarization, they aren't just noise. They can genuinely influence decision-making in Taipei and shape how the world sees the situation.
So internal divisions can amplify external vulnerabilities. That's a powerful connection.
It really is. It's a multi-layered challenge.
Okay, that's a sharp insight how internal fragility can become external leverage. So, looking ahead now, what does the report suggest is the likely trajectory in the near term for Taiwan, China, the U.S.? What should we be watching for next?
Right, the outlook. For Taiwan, in the near term, the government is probably going to engage in some significant policy recalibration.
Adjusting course, like President Lai mentioned.
Exactly. Focusing particularly on energy security and legislative strategy. Trying to respond to public concerns, maintain stability. We might even see some cabinet adjustments, possibly a push for broader consensus on tricky issues like energy.
Trying to build internal unity.
Seems likely. For Beijing, the assessment suggests they'll probably maintain rhetorical and diplomatic pressure, keep up the firm stance, but they'll also be watching very closely, monitoring for any perceived shifts toward independence.
Looking for any red lines being crossed?
Precisely. Ready to react if they see anything moving away from the one China framework.
And the United States.
Their role looks set to continue as supportive and strategic. They'll keep up the support for Taiwan diplomatically and militarily, making sure Taiwan can defend itself, but also encouraging reforms that enhance Taiwan's self-sufficiency, again, especially in areas like energy.
So a consistent approach there too. What about the overall risk level?
The report concludes the overall risk of escalation remains moderate for the immediate future. But, and this is a big caveat,
There's always a but.
always, the evolving political balance in Taiwan and persistent external pressures warrant close monitoring for potential flashpoints. So moderate risk, but the situation needs constant, careful attention because those underlying tensions haven't gone away.
It's clearly a situation that demands ongoing vigilance.
Absolutely.
So we've seen today that this China-Taiwan situation, it really is a deeply intricate dance, isn't it? Domestic politics, intense international pressure, critical issues like energy security all woven together.
It's definitely not about single headlines. It's this constant interplay of forces, internal and external, each affecting the other.
And understanding these nuances, these connections, is so key to grasping the full picture. Hopefully this deep dive has given you, our listener, a bit of a shortcut to being truly well-informed on a region that, frankly, will keep shaping global geopolitics.
Indeed. And maybe a final thought to consider. How might Taiwan's quite delicate internal political balance, combined with that very pressing need for energy security and these unrelenting external pressures, how might all that shape not just Taiwan's own future, but the broader stability and dynamics of the entire Indo-Pacific in the months ahead?
That is the big strategic question, isn't it? Something to really ponder as these events continue to unfold. Keep that curiosity alive, everyone, because understanding these connections is, well, more vital than ever.